Hello, welcome back to another episode of D54. Back with Kathy, back with Melanie to discuss A.R.M, the highly anticipated movie that's now come to streaming, which I think we were all aware of, but none of us checked it out in cinema. I think it came
No,
to some
I
places.
wasn't able to see it in cinema, but I was so glad when Amit mentioned that it had come to streaming and it was readily available in the U.S.
Yeah, very much looking forward to this one. It wasn't in any theaters near me, so I had to wait also, but I wanted to see it.
I think it was on limited release here. So a lot of times they put movies out here for like a couple days and then they'll move to like only a select few cinemas, which are like pretty far away. So it became like, if I don't watch it within the first few days, I miss my chance. And I couldn't watch it during that time. But it's a shame because after watching this, like, at home, I would have actually enjoyed seeing the cinema because this was
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one, I just enjoyed the fact it was just a great movie, but the fact that the whole 3D part of it, I could tell, they're doing things intentionally that were 3D. So it was made for 3D. It wasn't a movie that was a 3D movie afterwards. It's like, this is made for, the 3D experience. But, so it's one I would have watched, but I can just say clearly, guys, there will be spoilers in this review. And one spoiler is that we all thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. I think we're all Tovino Thomas fans.
Yes.
And having him be in a triple role, not a hardship there. Okay. But it's a genuinely really fun script. We were messaging each other as each of us had a chance, like Kathy's like, I didn't know it was going to be like Indiana Jones.
I know. I was so pleasantly surprised by the light tone because a bunch of big movies came out at the same time. It was this one, it was Devara, Kangava, and they all kind of in that same big epic way. They promoted the same way, these big, tribal, scenes and fighting. Yes. So I'd seen, Devara and Kangava, and they were okay. I was a little disappointed in those. So I was like, oh, here's, A.R.M. And I'm like, oh, another one of those. This was by far the best one. Like this one had a sense of humor. It had a cool story. I love the lovable rogue thief idea and the great Indiana Jones vibe. I mean, it was so fun. And it not only did it build to big, great, epicness. It was heartfelt and you felt like it had emotion. It wasn't just big, loud craziness, and he was really acting. So I really enjoyed that a lot. I was really surprised by how fun it was. Like that was the cool part.
Yeah.
I mean, the script really leaned into some of Tovino Thomas's strengths.
Yes.
He's really great at doing action. So there was that. He's also great as kind of being that lovable sad sack in town, and so that's kind of was his modern day as the grandson of our flashback character. So I really I liked all the different time periods. Sometimes it was a little confusing, like where are we, right? Like there wasn't always a delineator of where are we in time, although I felt like Tovino did a pretty good job in his acting of letting us know, okay, is this the crazed grandpa or is this our sweetheart present day guy, right? Like,
so true.
But I just really enjoyed the script. I mean, as you said, Kathy, we've kind of seen this flashing back and having an actor play a double role where they're playing somebody from the past, playing somebody in present day. And this one, of all the ones that we talked about, probably the smallest budget and the most fun and the best script.
Yep. Script. Script is key. Because I feel like a lot of them rely on the big epic, just the idea they won't have these big scenes and CGI and these big sets, but they forget. And that's why I love Molly Allen, because they don't forget the scripts.
Correct.
Right.
No, it was great. I mean, there were a few like visual cues to tell you what point what time of point you're in, like with Tovino's hair sometimes being a little bit different. But mostly, as you're right, his acting, and that's the part I loved about it. Tovino could play both a very straight-laced character and also an unhinged character, just from the 1950s or whatever it was. So you got to really show the versatility. And with Tovino is always the thing I've always said about him. I think that what really strikes me is he's so charismatic. Whenever he's on screen, he has this sort of charisma, which I think is like something unique to him. Like obviously there are other great actors, but when I think of him and I compare him with some of his I guess contemporaries, for me, he's the most charismatic in a lot of ways. Like he can just come on screen and be in a movie like, Talumala, where he's just, really, brash and he's like really cocky and arrogant and all that. He has like Minu Morali, where this has some similarities to that as well. And this one we got to see a bit more of him in a bit of a sadder role at times. Because he's so versatile. We saw him in a movie earlier this year, the one where he's playing like a cop, and he's really like understated. He's really just like down to earth. He doesn't really get alive at all. In this movie, he does a bit more. But the thing you mentioned, Kathy, about it being more fun, that's something I didn't expect.
No,
just looking at
not in the marketing at all.
No, in the marketing, I thought this would be a really serious, really grand, epic story, like fighting for his life or something like that, and like fighting for the society. And in a way, it is about that, but it doesn't take such a serious tone where you're like, all right, this is going to be bogging down for 2.5 hours and just no humor. No, they brought Basil Joseph in. You can't ever complain about Basil Joseph, and he was being his comedic self. So that was great.
Oh, I was just going to mention Basil Joseph. Okay, listen, we all love him as a director from the get-go, but I also love him as an actor. And I think he was perfect at playing this friend. Yeah. A little shady.
Slightly. But you're rooting for him. Like, see, that's the weird part.
I know, but he's still so lovable, even when you're like, he's the one that screwed him over. Oh, my God. But you know what? Like, you still love him. Like, he just has that kind of, I don't know, he has that face where you're like, oh, he's a lovable.
It's okay, even though he had to do, fall off or whatever and die. But it's fine. I know. It's like,
when I saw him come on, because I don't even think I knew that he was in the movie. And when he first came on screen, I'm like,
I know. I usually lit up. I'm like, oh my God, they were in the same movie. This is cool as hell.
Very cool. Very cool.
So delighted.
I think he's like his intro scene was probably like one of the funniest ones when he comes in. He says, "I'm setting up this tea shop." He's holding it upside down, and they're all confused. And he turns it around, and just a small little thing where it's just like, I love that because looking at the trailer, looking at some of the posters and things like that, I thought this was going to be really serious. Yeah. And then you just bring someone like that in, and you're like, okay, this is not going to be hard to watch. This movie flew by. It was 2 hours and a half, and I was just like, wow, this movie is just flying, which is so great because they started off with this. I guess it started off in a bit more serious of a tone. It was great though, like the whole 1990s sort of storyline, which was probably the least fleshed out of the three. Like we saw him play that really old character, not old character, that back in time character, for the least amount of time. But it said enough of the story enough. And the other thing I loved about this movie is there's enough mystery to keep you going as to what's actually happening here. Like they do things like he burnt the letter. We don't find out what the letter was about. The notes that he had burnt on the leaves. Right. We don't find out about till like way later. So you're like, oh wow,
like, oh yeah,
and, right.
So the storyline just moved so fast because it was so intriguing, and there's so many points of interest where you're just like, I want to see how this unfolds. It's just such a good script.
Well, and even the perspectives of some of the female characters. So, for instance, Rohini, who we love, she is always awesome. She's frequently playing a mom. She was a mom in Bahubali. But here, just to see, you're like, okay, she's being so harsh with Tovino's character. Like, can she just let up? But then we have the flashback where you realize she was the one that witnessed her father, Tovino's grandfather, jumping off the cliff and all of what happened and how people viewed her in the village based on all of these things. She does not want any of that repeated. Like, she literally watched her, her father. So it's like when you realize the trauma that she had gone through, I loved how that just added layers to what the story was showing us. And was showing a different perspective. We weren't always seeing Tovino's point of view. We were seeing, this adds another dimension. This adds more depth to what this conflict is all about because we're seeing it from Rohini's and the history that she lived through and how her perspective of it led to the conflicts in the present day.
That's right. And I love too the Indiana Jones vibe for me was brought with he finds a relic, the lamp. He wants to steal the lamp. So then there's a fake lamp. So it becomes this like bait and switch. And everyone's not sure. So he becomes a bad guy because he stole the lamp, but he just wanted to bring it to the people. It becomes like this, and he does all the honorable things, but he did steal this artifact. But they even go so far as to have this creeping through this underground labyrinth. It was I was like, oh my God, this makes me feel so good to see this. And you have all the same kind of traps, the little weird traps that were happening.
Yes.
This is so good. I was like, this is like, exactly what I needed in the moment, because I'd seen so many grim films. I'm like, oh my god, it's like so it was just such a nice little just lit up warmth that I just Indiana Jones just does that. It may not for the rest of the world, but boy, when we see Indiana Jones, it's like just give me more of that.
Yeah. And to be honest, I haven't seen it in like this is like Indiana like adventure kind of theme, which you don't see that much of. Indiana Jones, like The Mummy, like those kind of movies. Some people going on exploration to find something. This had a lot of those elements, as well as a lot more with the whole legacy of the thief, and I thought that was really interesting. Right. And the mother-son relationship, which was also there, and the timelines we're still playing with. I loved how they played with the timelines, but it was never like so confusing. Like, they kept it pretty light on that part. That's the other part I was scared about this movie. I was like, going to be like, is this going to be too much to absorb in one time? Is it going to be like, it's going to be too complicated, and you have to put all the dots together at times, and it's going to be like loopholes and things like that, which are going to screw things up. No, it was actually pretty clear cut. They flashback every now and then at the right times. So when he's in that cave, he goes back and, we see the 1950s version of him also going back in time. And then we can see the parallel and the contrast between how they both approached it. I love the magical elements of it too. Like, they're just like the fireflies come and they guide him. I love that. It's just a great mix. So it had a good mix of like romance, comedy, adventure, like, magic, if you want to put it, folk, like folk tales, history. Like, it brought in a lot of different elements that all blended together really well. Like, I was just so excited watching this movie. But the Indiana part, that might have been my favorite part, because I haven't seen that before. Like the part where he's just stuck in that well and he's having to solve the puzzle. And the comes up. I'm like, I've seen so many Malayalam movies. I've not seen one that I could think of that has this same like vibe to it. So again, so refreshing.
That's a shock. I know. I even wrote to you guys going, "Oh my god, I didn't expect this," because it was just so shocking. I love that. Right. It was also kind of like Uncharted, that video game, which I also like, where they have a little bit of the business Uncharted, of it. Yes, I love that game. I love it too, because it's the Indiana Jones, basically, right? Correct. So I love that. You get to go on your own adventures. So just to have that come back into my life, it's like, oh, now I want more of this. Like, I wish they would, like, Malayalam would go in deeper on it. Like, if there was a part 2 to this, I don't know how they don't know if they could really, should be. They should really go into the exploration aspect of it. Like, we got kind of background, we got the whole. I would love to see more of that, even if it was in the past. Like, we go more to his adventures, and then maybe we can see a little bit more. There's so much rich, storyline to explore.
So much scope. They could either do a prequel, they could do a sequel, they could go both ways, because they have so much time to play with. They could go back.
He's still young. He could do this forever.
Okay, so I was just looking up this director to confirm. Debut director. Yeah. Okay, all he had done was a short before. Okay, so Jithin Laal is this director. This is amazing. Okay, we would be just as admiring of this film if it was a seasoned director, like a Rajamouli or a Basil, whatever. Okay, this is a debut who had only done a short before. Okay, this is such an ambitious debut movie.
Yeah, 3D.
Okay, 3D, but also just juggling multiple timelines and all of this. Like, hey, let's give it up, because this is amazing. I am going to be really looking forward to seeing what this director does in the future. I hope this was a huge success theatrically in Kerala.
Oh, good, it was.
And more people are going to be able to enjoy it now because it is on streaming. Like, I am just blown away by the fact that this was a debut director. Like, wow. Wow.
Yeah. I'll say at this point, I'm not blown away, because this seems like the theme, like, of this year. Like,
these first timers.
Like
that's true.
A lot of movies this year feels like they've come out and they're either the first movie of the director or the second movie of the director. Like, a lot of movies that it seems like that's happened a lot this year for some reason, which just shows you that maybe the industry is just so strong that you don't even need really strong. You don't need. Well, I guess I don't want to take credit away from the director, but there's a good support system around the director to be like, hey, even if you're inexperienced, we have the people around you to help you make something really great, which is the script writers, which is what's called in Malayalam.
Right. And here, this was a collaborative effort. So many times, some of the movies that I would say Kathy and I could point some fingers were written and directed by the same person. Now, this one is a collaborative effort. So we have Sujith Nambiar wrote, and then additional screenplay help was Deepu Pradeep. So I think sometimes it's great if there is a singular vision of one person, but also sometimes something is stronger when it is a collaborative effort, and you can have a checks and balances of saying, hey, how about we do this instead, or hey, I have a great idea, whatever. Like this team was magical together, and also I thought it was beautifully shot as well. Like it was a pleasure to watch.
It's so good.
It really was. I loved sort of the some of the period pieces that they included as well. Like that first intro scene, as I said, was pretty cool because he's back in his, I guess, the first version, the first iteration of himself, where he's just comes out, and I think we leaned into it before, like Tovino's strengths, and one of them is he can do good action sequences. So just him coming out with that sword, this warrior on the horse, and coming down and taking everybody out.
I bought it. I take that.
I was like, wow, this is
I believe it.
He instantly hooks. So 20 minutes pass, and you're like, "What? It's just finished already." We got so much storytelling, good action scenes, well shot. It's building up to something pretty fantastic here. So you're already so well invested. Such a great intro. It's none of this sit down. The first hour is going to be a bit of a drag, and then you get into it afterwards.
When like, are we going to really get into it?
Yeah, exactly. You're not waiting for it. No, exactly. They're like, nope, the first scene is going to be interesting, and it's just it continues all the way. And I also love how it gets better and better because, like, I love how it repeats history and the way they show it. Like the scene, probably one of my favorite scenes is the scene where they show us the 1950s version where the I think it's Manikyam, the one that steals a lamp and is deceived. And then he it shows him fighting in the forest, and then that's repeated again with Tovino's character in the current time, the 1990s, where he's doing that. And I love that flashback where they have where he's on the cliff top and then he falls, and then they show the previous version of him falling, and they both survive. And it's just like I love that sort of repeating history aspect. And the mother, they're showing her in both phases where she's a child and crying, and they bring her back and she's an adult and she's seeing it again. It's like, oh my god, this is traumatizing.
And also Tovino Thomas in the water is just stressful to me. I've never really recovered from the 2008. Oh my gosh, that was like, so I see him underwater. I'm like, oh my god, no, because that was so traumatizing. So I'm still trying to recover from that. So, but I did, and they even have like, let's add on top of that underwater scenes, which are really hard to do. So this director is piling on 3D, multiple timelines, Indiana Jones homage, which is risky, and then also water, and he totally nailed it. I was very impressed. I can't believe it's his first movie. I mean, you can tell he loves movies.
Right.
This movie, like, it started shooting like it's like 6 years in the making or something like that. So it was a long time. I think that's from what I heard. It was like maybe
movies
6
take
years.
A long time sometimes.
Around 45. Okay, it was under like construction, or the thought of it was around for a long time, I think, and due to COVID, I think it also got a bit delayed. So it was one of those movies that was impacted.
Still having the COVID effect.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, if I'm wrong in the comment section, let me know, guys. But I'm pretty sure this is a movie that was like thought of for a long time, and they took a while to get it together. So that might have been like rewriting scripts. It might have been like changing the way it's sort of going, or maybe spending more time in post production and putting together those water scenes that come across perfectly. Which it all paid off in the end, because I think you said something, Melanie, whether this movie was successful. It was one of the highest grossing films of Malayalam cinema of 2024.
Deservedly so. Okay, I was like you, Amit. I was sitting there watching it on my, granted, pretty big screen TV, but wishing that I was seeing it in a theater and having that soundscape as well, right? Because I could see this just being so fun.
I love the like they had a couple songs here which were really good as well. They were really nice, and even the background score was nice. This is a really well put together movie. Like, this movie deserves all the praise that we're giving it and all the sort of accomplishments it's achieved. Because another thing I liked about this was like, this came out at a time, so it came out during the A.R.M Festival, which is the big release. But I have to say, like, the start of this year for Malayalam cinema was just blazing hot, and it seemed like whatever they put out was just going to be on fire. Then it went pretty quiet for some time, and this movie kind of sticks out in the middle. It's like, hey, this movie's in the middle and is really good. So if there was a timeline, it'd be like hot, and then quiet for a long time, and then after that, just a few peaks, because there's a couple other movies that came out that were really good, but it wasn't off the momentum of other good movies, because the other ones are like, Brahma Yugam came out, so therefore Avesha must be really good or something like that, because they're back to back. But this movie did that really well. So I mean, all praise for this movie. Really enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to a sequel. I'm really keen to see one, because as I said, like, this movie is something that you can build off. Like, there's you can build a world around this, or a theme around this. Like, it's not over. You can definitely build another story.
They kind of have that little shot at the end, that little sting at the end, where you're like, aha, he's looking for another thing to steal, which is exactly what Indiana Jones would do. So
correct.
That is why I liked it.
So there was a little bit of I guess I wouldn't say maybe confusion, but like he does get saved by somebody that's in the water, right? Like there's somebody that saves him. So I'm not sure what you guys think, but my theory is that it's actually him in the 1950s.
Yeah,
and he's
I got
dead.
that too. I think so.
Too? Yeah. So
and I'm never sure, like, because when he was fighting, it's almost like he inhabited his former self too, like it helped him fight.
Yeah,
he
correct.
Win. But so I'm wondering if like him coming in to save him was sort of almost symbolic of him being saved by his past because he'd done it before. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know. Or the supernatural. I don't know.
I have to tell you that my trip to Kerala kind of, a lot of these scenes was making me think like, because of how kind of the temple scenes and I don't know, just, kind of how atmospheric and dark they can be and lit by candlelight and whatever inside. And then, just also, I don't know, just the whole atmospherics of this movie, I just think were so great. Yeah. And I just loved, that it's like that the real lamp was the one that was that kind of all tarnished and whatever. Yes. Like, you know what I mean? That was sort of, that again had sort of a Indiana Jones element. Is when they find the Holy Grail, it's the one that's the simplest.
Everybody's like,
not the
gold chalice,
gem encrusted, one, right? It was like this one that looks more modest is the one that's the real. Yeah. So there was obviously this director and screenwriters are fans of Hollywood cinema as well, but just overall, just so great. Like I really am looking forward to seeing what other projects, and I think we also just have to hand it up to Tovino and whoever his management team are he's really choosing great, interesting projects that highlight his strengths. And I'm just so happy to see him on screen, right? Because I feel like he is, as you said, he's kind of this charismatic one of his generation, and I feel like he's really kind of the box office where you're like, okay, I know what I'm going to get. Yeah. If I pay in the ticket for a Tovino Thomas movie, it's going to be worth my ticket price, right?
He does consistently seem to pick really good projects. I mean, when you look at his IMDb, it's like, oh, there's a great one, there's a great one, there's a great one. I get it from the very beginning. He seems to have just a supernatural attention.
Well, and this bet of picking a debut director but working with him really paid off, right? Because here Tovino is the name. It's not the director's name that's bringing people to the theater. It's Tovino Thomas's name that's bringing people to the theater. Right. And so this was a risk that really paid off.
Yep. It's the second time this year he's worked with a directorial debut, a director on his debut. Because the previous movie we talked about, Tovino, Anvishapam Kandatum, which is the one where he's in a police officer. He's been a police officer. That was also a director debut in that movie as well.
One of the best mustaches I've ever seen. He looks so good in that.
He's making a habit of it, and it's good. Like it helps, the director out to have somebody that's experienced as Tovino, as well as a box office draw. But in terms of, we really have to give it up to him. Like his performance in this movie is just like really good. I really enjoyed him, especially as the thief, because I've not seen an unhinged version of him yet. He was so crazy at times, like with the facial expressions and how cocky he was, and like how he really was an outlaw, and he exemplified that the most of the three. Like the first one was more like your nobleman, noble warrior, and the third one was more about this like sad guy living off the legacy of his. Also, but I like the dynamic between him and the grandma as well as a kid. Like they showed that as well. There's just so much. Like the more you talk about this movie, the more things that you like seem to forget. There's a whole martial art aspect to it. They have that tournament where he's playing with the bow staff. And all that is like.
I remember what I was going to say is that when we were in Kerala, we saw a martial arts demonstration. So I appreciated also that kind of like the ancient march. I mean, because some of these martial arts traditions are way older than some of the ones that people do in America today, right? And it's just, so it was very cool to me how much of that was incorporated, like the stick fighting and all of that, because we saw a demonstration in Munnar, and you could tell, Tovino, I mean, he's just excellent in action, but like I think he might have done extra care into training into making some of those scenes look particularly good as well. So I appreciated that, because that is a martial arts that is of that region as well. So
yeah. Again, they're bringing in, it's culturally rich as well. So they're bringing in some of their own culture to that movie as well. I mean, they do that anyway, but I mean, this specifically, I've not seen the movie explore that martial arts so much either.
No.
But there's 2 movies now Tovino Thomas has to follow up on. One is Minimal Morale 2, which everyone's waiting for.
Seriously. That was, I think that's the first movie I saw with him in it, I think was that movie.
Yeah,
that was a good one to start with.
That one I saw, I think that was one of the first Malayalam movies I saw. Minimal Morale and Talumala were the first.
So good.
Like, they were in my first 5 movies that I saw. So 2 of them were Tovino Thomas movies, which is why I'm such a big fan of his. But yeah, this has been so much fun. If you guys have not seen this movie, make sure to check it out on streaming because it is just a blast. You're going to have a lot of fun. It's not going to bog you down. It's not serious. It's not hard to get through. So, if there were any, maybe the marketing could have been a little bit better as a critique, like to show you that fun side a little bit more and be like, hey, there's actually some comedy here. There's some quips. There's some jokes. There's some
more of the
character
adventure.
dynamics.
Like that. Correct. Maybe a border that's out of stone, or maybe someone holding a torch and Indiana Jones it up.
Correct. They could have done something like that to express that more. But I mean, as a movie, excellent. So this was such a fun discussion. Thanks for coming on, guys. I really enjoyed talking about this movie, and we are looking forward to A.R.M 2. And
come on now.
If you have any news about a sequel, if you know anything that's coming up next, if there's been something said in a press conference or an interview, please let us know in the comment section. We'd love to know. Make sure you go check out Kathy at Cinemundo. Subscribe, like, comment. Make sure you go to Melanie at Paradesi Reviews. Subscribe, like, comment. And yeah, we will talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.